All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to our Rally Mentorship panel discussion. Here at the Mom Project, we are so excited to be providing our Rally cohort with a series of events as part of your own mentorship experience. Today, you will have the opportunity to learn from our inspiring leaders and mentors who are actively participating in our Spring 2023 Rally cohort. We are so grateful for all of our mentors and mentees participating in Rally and making a real impact in our community. Following the event, we will share the recording link, so please feel free to share it with others and rewatch it. Along with the recording link, you will also receive another reminder about our upcoming event in June as well. And with that, I will let Ashima take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashima. You've definitely gotten quite a few emails from me. First of all, thank you all for attending, giving your time and energy to the mentorship program. For me, it's just incredibly fulfilling to see the engagement and really the commitment that this community has to each other. I'm just honored that we get to have some amazing panelists. These are actual mentors participating in our program today, sharing their insights, their journey, their lessons learned with all of you as well. We had quite the engagement of mentors raising their hands saying they want to share their insights to the group. And for me, that's just, again, another sign of how committed this community is to supporting each other. So without further ado, let's start from the beginning. I love for each panelist here to share their name, where they're based, their role today, and we'll add a little bit of a twist. We'll add what missions and values have guided you throughout your career. And also, did your career go according to your original plans? Erica, why don't you kick us off here?
Hi, I'm Erica. Thank everybody for joining. It's such an honor to be a part of this program and just give my time. So my name is Erica Welch. I'm out of the Detroit metro area. And I'm a legal negotiator for General Motors and a mom of two amazing little girls. So some of my mission and my values have been in career. Number one, to become more valuable. I've always prided myself on really being able to leverage, and to be able to leverage, you need to become more valuable through experiences, skills. My next mission, work-life balance. Initially, when I was in undergrad, I was, I want to be a lawyer. I want to, but as I, got married and I started to have kids, that kind of trumped it all. So it's very important for me wherever I'm working, it has some work-life balance. So I could be a wife, I can be a mom. And I found it to be fulfilling for my career to have those areas fulfilled. And then learn the lesson. I've worked, I'm in the legal field. I've worked a bunch of different positions where I didn't necessarily like those positions. But instead of me kind of being upset about it, I looked at it an opportunity to grow. What is the lesson that I'm supposed to be learning, regardless of how I feel about my colleagues or regardless of how I feel about the workload? What am I supposed to learn? And with that, I've always taken something away that made me more valuable. It made me a little bit stronger mentally or otherwise from every position I've worked in. And then last one, transparency. That's something that I kind of learned as I got older. As I got more into my career, I realized there needs to be a level of transparency with you and an employer. So I present myself. I don't put on a show. I don't perform. My hair is like this, and this is how I'm going to present in the interview and when I talk to you, because you need to know what you're getting from me, and I need to know what I'm getting from you. So transparency has always been key. And then the next question, did my career go according to plan? I think there are natural setbacks in anything you do. But short answer, yes. I'm a planner, so I had a plan from elementary, really, and I just stayed the course. So short answer, yes. Have I had setbacks? Absolutely.
Love that focus on the transparency there. Rocky, love to hear from you.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here today. My name is Rocky Howard. I identify as she, her, Black, Christian, Gen X wife and mom. I am blessed to be married to the love of my life for 30 plus years. I have 4 kids who are all grown, so I'm in a different phase of motherhood. I have 3 girls and 1 son, and they range from 21 to 32. I think, and I'm based in Jacksonville, Florida, although not today. I'm on vacation in Orlando, so that's really exciting. Um, I think when you think about mission, my mission, as I work through my career, has always been about being blessed, awesome, and productive. For me, I am an unapologetic God girl. I operate with a bit of faith. And I think whenever you're going through a long-term career, a long-term anything, you have to have faith in something that's bigger than you. And for me, that faith brought purpose to hopefully how I show up. I think being awesome is about energy. Like, I am a person with a lot of energy, and I like to bring that energy to inspire others. And productivity is really about, like, we don't like to talk about this a lot. We like to make the world of work seem easy. But let me tell you, you have to do the work. You have to show value to your employer. You have to show value to your colleagues. You should be aligning how you produce with what you want to be. And so when we think about mission, that's the way I've always operated from. I think if you think about it from a values perspective, much like Erica was saying about transparency, I made a very deliberate decision in my career back in 2007. I'll be really honest, and it has led to where I am today, where I focus on DEIB for a living. But I was tired of code switching. I was tired of hiding. I was tired of trying to assimilate. The emotional tax that I had paid had been much too high to continue for me to operate that way. And so I made a very conscious decision that I would move forward with authenticity. I was going to show up the way I show up. And much like Erica talked about, I don't show up the way most executives show up. And I was willing to take the consequences for that. I recognized that not everyone was going to want to hire someone who looked like me, but I also decided that I didn't want to work for someone who that was going to be their parameters. For me, it was all about authenticity. And it is also about work ethic. I pride myself on having an incredible work ethic. So I think I've built my career on those 2 values of authenticity and having a real work ethic. So I think, we'll answer lots of questions, but that's a good start.
Wonderful. And Sangeeta, please go ahead.
Sure thing. And it's a tough thing to go after a couple of panelists who speak so well. Like, it's a lot of beautiful things that they've covered, and that's a lot of things that I thought out as well. So, quick introduction. My name is Sangeeta, and I'm based out of Pacific Northwest, Seattle to be specific, and I am a program manager with Meta, and a mom to 2 feisty 3-year-old little twins. So my life is extremely busy that ways, but then very blessed as well. So a couple of things there. So when we talk about, values or things that kept my career going. So one of it was wanting to continuously improve. So that actually directly comes from seeing my dad work, honestly. So he had like a lot of things happening in his career where they saw, he was in a bank, and where they saw everything being written in a paper to things getting computerized. And then eventually the whole sudden thing breaking out into, Internet of Things, and, everything being super forward, where for them, it was a lot to adapt to and a lot to learn. And for me coming in, that was primary to me as to, things will change, things will evolve, be it people, be it processes, be it just the way things work around us in the world. And the primary thing for me was to learn and adapt. And also, accept the fact that, that's how things are going to be. So change is inevitable. Just the way things work is inevitable. And I have to keep learning. I have to keep upgrading myself. And that's the only way to stay relevant. And that, as a value, meant being able to take mentoring either ways, right? It's not just from people who are senior, it's not just from people who are new in the industry, but from literally everybody around me. So ideas cross-pollinating was one of the things that I loved. Being in a service industry earlier, as you know, I mean, I was with retail one day and then with insurance one day and things like that. And, you know, I mean, it was more of, you know, just trying to learn from all different directions. So it was just learning per se that kept me going. And, you know, I mean, and honestly, that kept things a lot more interesting as well. I didn't have to let myself feel anything was mundane. It was just trying to look at what can I do? Yeah, what can I learn from here that I can apply into anything else that I'm working on? And as a value, it was more of, I mean, I'd definitely love to repeat what the both of you said. So it's more of staying authentic, staying true to who you are, and also credibility, where, you know, I mean, if I commit to something, it's giving my 100% to that. So there is not just because there's a reputation to keep, but also because that's the kind of trust I would expect from anybody that I'm working with. So it's like, you know, I mean, you commit to me, commit to something, let's work together and make things happen. So keeping that objective in mind and staying credible throughout was one thing that kept pushing me to getting to where I need to be as well. And that's pretty much what I had on those topics there.
Thank you so much. I'm really loving hearing the values as we talk about ourselves. I'm sensing a lot of intentionality and really finding a career and employers that fit our values, right? And that takes me to my next topic, something that we've seen in the data, especially from the mentees, are really understanding the leadership route. You know, many of the mentees have mentioned actually in their goals that they're considering taking the leadership route while balancing priorities with families. So if applicable, I'd really love to hear each one of you talk about at what point in your career did you move from that individual team member to leadership? Was it something that you always wanted? And any challenges and lessons learned that you can pass along to those listening today?
Okay, the question is applicable for me. I've actually been in a number of leadership roles. And partly is because I had the mindset, I had the confidence, and I had the courage. One thing I picked up on is that I realized that many people often don't want leadership roles because they don't want the added responsibility. Sure, they want the title, and you know, for ego or this, but do you really want to do the work? And so I was ready for the work. I was ready for the challenge. So that really helped me a lot. My goal has always been to make myself more valuable and gain leverage and be challenged. And so with that mindset, I continuously excelled and found more and more strength, skill, and credentials and leverage, because that's what I believe leadership gives you. It challenges you in a way that, you know, you have to prove yourself in order to get those roles. Now, I didn't always want to be a leader. It just was people always pointing me out to lead. Even in college, I was a resident director for my dormitory, and I had no intention on applying. I was like, I can't do that. This is a lot. You know, I can't run a dorm. And they were like, you know, Erica, you got to apply. You have to apply. So just people constantly pulling at me really, really encouraged me. But I would say, no, I didn't always want to be a leader. I feel like I was scared the way anyone else might be, but I found my groove and I realized I was a natural leader. I've learned that leadership is not about, you know, dictating and directing, but equipping individuals with autonomy and through direction and organization, and giving them this kind of space to grow. And it's really, really worked for me. I've never had any issues with leading people at all, which is surprising, you know. And I would say probably my some challenges that I faced with the transition into leadership is that so I started getting leadership roles at a very young age. So I was in charge of people that were typically older than I was. That was a struggle because someone, you know, 20 years my senior doesn't want to listen to a 20 something back when I first started leading. So I'll share this. I remember I was in one role and someone actually quit because I became in charge of them. And they thought, you know, hey, I should go first, you know. And so I learned there's a lot of egos in working in these spaces when you're a leader and having to be in charge of people. And it taught me acceptance of others, acceptance of their differences. And it gave me tremendous courage. And so my advice for aspiring leaders, I would say experience. Leaders are often sought out, you know, which is something that I realized throughout, but ultimately, my advice would be, you need to stand out. And fortunately, there are very few people who want to commit in the way that helps them stand out. So I would say stand out and experience. The biggest thing that helped me really transition into being a leader is because I had the experience. And it was just invaluable in that. And I guess let me share my last little point on that. I have just a little bit, I went to an interview, a group interview for a role, with people that were probably 10, 20 years older than I was. And I was so nervous because I'm thinking, I can't compete with these people. But I did not let that deter me. I prepared, and I actually was the only person in the group to get the leadership role. And so anyways, I used that time, regardless of me, not having confidence in that interview when I could have been like, oh, I used that interview as an opportunity to really showcase my ability to be a leader. And it bode well with me. And one thing I realized overall is that management wants to know you're confident. They want to know you're capable. They want to know you're competent. So you go into these spaces, and it just gives you an opportunity to grow. So overall, leadership, stand out and gain the experience and commit. A lot of people don't want to commit that work ethic into what it takes to become a leader. And so that's going to be key, the work ethic, because you need the work ethic to gain the experience. So I'm all over the place with that one, but yeah.
No, I love that. I actually do have a quick follow-up question, Erica. When you stepped into your first leadership role, were there ever times maybe that you second guessed yourself or the environment that you in made you doubt yourself? And how did you manage that? Because that's something that I personally struggled with when I stepped into my first managerial role.
Okay, I will say preparing. That was always what helped me, because I was always going to I realized somebody was always going to challenge my authority, so I made sure I was well versed. I made sure I knew the policies. I made sure I could direct them accordingly, because they're coming to you, looking at you as a leader. So you need to have your stuff together, like, period. So that was what really, really helped me. So whenever somebody challenged me, when everybody thought, well, the policy is this is you know what I mean? And I was really firm. I was never, and I'll be honest, I was never really scared. That's how I knew it was for me. And I thought I would be scared, but I just, it was easy for me and effortless for me to read the policy, because most people don't read things. Most people don't. So it just was like, oh my God, all you got to do is be prepared to lead. That's all you need to do. So that's my little secret. Be prepared, because they're going to come at you. And if you know all the information and you're equipped, you're going to knock it out. You're going to handle it, So thank you
I
for
love that. That's awesome. Thank you. Rocky, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I've worked since I was 13 years old, and I had my first leadership position in restaurant management by the time I was 16 or 17, right? And so I've led in those environments, I've led in corporate environments, and we are using leader. So I have a couple of things that I want to say here. I think, first of all, we need to realize that we're talking about leadership as if it's equivalent to managing direct reports and having direct reports. I'm a firm believer that leaders are not necessarily dictated by as people who have direct reports. But I think in the context of this conversation, that's what we're talking about. I think the thing that I want to say to people, and certainly I can talk about a couple of places in my journey, is I think there's a perception that when we're in a career and we're climbing a ladder, that the next thing that we should all want to do is manage people. And that is not the case for everyone. And so as you all are thinking about this, I'd like for you to really ask yourself this question: is if you are pursuing a manager role, why? Is it because you want more pay? Is it because you want the prestige that goes along with that? Is it because you want to further your career? And those are all really valid reasons, but you really need to think about that. For me, I love managing people because it gives me an opportunity to grow and develop others. And that's a core need of mine, right? I want to see other people have access to economic opportunity, access to career opportunity. And I believe that my particular skills align with being a manager of people. Now, I'm a person who is quite frankly equally as content with leading, whether I have direct reports or not. I've led large global teams, I've led small teams, I have had leadership roles that didn't involve having direct reports. And I think for me, it's really about influence versus authority, right? I think all of us like to think about the title dictates how people should respond. And yes, there have been times in my career as women that we all have to kind of go, hey, yep, like, look, this is the title, respect the seat. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that that doesn't happen. But I think for me, it's about what kind of leader do you want to be, and how do you want to interact with people, and what do you want the outcome to be? And that's different for everybody. I am not a leader who shows up and needs to be liked by everyone. And this is a bit of a controversial thing because I don't show up to be liked. I show up to make you better. And so sometimes those are tough conversations. Very often, what I hear people saying is, I want somebody who's going to be honest and direct. Let me just tell you, a lot of times that's a crock of crap. People don't want you to be honest and direct with you. People want you to make them feel better about themselves. That's not what I'm here for. Like, if you tell me I want to go from A to C, then I'm going to help you get to A to C, which means I need to have the skills to be able to give you constructive feedback. I need to be able to guide you. I'm a big mama bear. I'll put my arms around you, but I'm not gonna like pretend like everything is okay when it doesn't. I am direct and I am honest. And if you're on the other side of that, you can choose to grow from it or you can choose not to like it, right? I think it's about cultivating cultures where people are respected. And that's a two-way street. I think finally, when I think about that's the biggest challenge personally I've had, is that people say they want someone who's direct and honest. I'm pretty direct and honest, and people, when they receive that, don't know how to take it. On the other side, I think it is really about help and support. So um, I tend to ask people who report to me all the time, how can I help and support you? And it's been a genuine question. And I remember the first time that I realized the impact on that, an employee of mine said, they were resigning and said, the first time you asked me that question, I thought it was just, like out of some management book and it was like, whatever, until I realized that every time you asked it, you meant it. And when I would ask for help or tell you how I need to be supported, you either delivered on what you said you were going to do, or you were honest and said, well, I can't do this, or this isn't, I can't influence this outcome. What can you do? So I think if you're thinking about taking that step, you need to think leadership is a serious responsibility. You are taking the careers of someone else into your hands. And do you want to be able to do that? And are you willing to advocate and influence on their behalf?
Oh, I can't wait to listen to this recording and take down notes about everything you just mentioned, because that last reflection you ended on, I think that really hits the nail on the head of really figuring out whether that is a good step for you or right for you. One follow-up question that I have is that, at least in my leadership journey, it's been very iterative, right? The leader who I was a few years ago is definitely not the leader who I am now. I've really tried to take feedback and iterate my leadership style along the way. I'd love to hear how you incorporate feedback into your leadership style. And, if you are open to sharing what type of feedback you've incorporated.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, I've been doing this for more than 30 years, right? And young Rocky was probably way too energetic, a bit insufferable, wanting to be liked by everyone, which can get you, didn't necessarily have a vision. I think for me, I do have really high expectations of people. And so I've gotten feedback that that is, like it's tough on people, right? And so I have to moderate. I have a lot of energy, and that's a bit much on people. So I've had to learn how to adjust based on who I'm interacting with and what they need. I'm a bit of a workaholic, to be fair. And so people who work with me have also felt the need to keep pace with that, even though I've said you don't have to do that. But I think it's a great opportunity to share that feedback, because people will respond to how you are acting and what you're doing, not what you're saying. So I've had to adjust in those ways. There's a million pieces of feedback that I've gotten over time, and especially as I've moved to focus on the diversity space, to learn to be and create cultures that are much more inclusive, and to think about multiple dimensions of diversity as I'm making decisions, and thinking not just through my own lens or the lens of a few dimensions of diversity. It's about learning whose voice isn't at the table. I'm a big talker, and so learning to make space for others, because I have this energy. You just, as a leader, if you think you're in the seat because you know it all, you're not ready to be a leader.
Amazing. All right, Sangeeta, please go ahead.
Sure. Once again, beautiful insights. And I think I resonate with a lot of what you're talking about. So there has been instances where, you go in as a leader, you go in as quite a bit of an aggressive one, and then you realize that, personalities are different, you need to mellow down, or the other way around, where the team needs that aggression sometimes because the team needs the push. So definitely resonate with a lot of what Erica and Rocky just said. And for me as well, I think leadership kind of came a little early on. And it was more of the domain expertise that kind of led me to, picking up things that I could lead. And personally, I do believe that, situations don't necessarily create leaders, but it kind of identifies them. So you sort of, for me, for people who are aspiring to be leaders, it's more of being prepared to, get there. So you don't necessarily need to wait for the title, but keep preparing throughout. And there will be your moment to shine and actually lead things. And for me, it's more of bringing people together to solve a common objective. So leadership, again, like Rocky mentioned, it's not necessarily a title or just managing a bunch of people, but it's more of what is this organization? What are we trying to do? And what do you want me to lead? And if there is an effort that we're trying to lead, or if there is an initiative that we're trying to lead, how can I bring the right people together and be knowledgeable enough to equip them for where they need to succeed? So it's more of letting people grow along with me. So it's more of my own growth and other people's growth. So being really conscious about what the team needs to be successful, right? So it's more of that. And I'm going to kind of also talk about a little bit of a vulnerable side to what my challenges were when I became a leader. Because honestly, so there was a promotion that happened, and we were having our first meeting with our boss at that point in time to talk about, okay, these are the people that are moving into the managerial role, and this is what is expected of you. And of a group of around, I think 17 of us at that point across departments, I was the only woman. And I was kind of, it was a tricky situation, and I had to wonder why. And there is this crossroads of, people getting married or people having kids at that point, or it's just at that point in your career where I think the biggest word for me was imposter syndrome was setting in, where, we do great. Once we are in that position, once I've seen a lot of women leaders who've been my biggest source of inspirations, but to be in that spot and to suffer that and, to break out of it, to realize that you could fake it till you make it. Or for me, the biggest thing was I looked at examples, right? I was reading a lot of books, looking at TED Talks, looking at examples. And I was like, and one of the things, if I may say so, was, looking at some of these women leaders, I picked like one or two that I loved, and kind of thought of what would they have done in this situation, right? So I didn't have to reinvent the wheels at that point in time. And then kind of let myself settle in and not let this, it kind of stopped me from speaking up, for instance, or it wasn't necessarily just a gender difference. It was more of the socializing part of it. It was more of, just the way we do certain things to, I mean, a woman coming in, leading in a space that's probably a lot more men does have its own, I mean, we've probably all been through that. So it was more of, I mean, building my expertise and making sure that nothing from my work was could be blamed for it. And I was like, I mean, I'll do everything that I can to actually stand out. And so there is not going to be anything else that's going to come in the way. So it wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't more of a textbook thing that, you could just go in and say, I'll practice this or I'll fake it till I make it. And then it's going to happen on day one. It is going to take effort. And the big lesson for me there was going and checking what was happening with fellow women, right? I mean, my own friends and other people in other departments that were in that spot who probably did or did not get promoted or were not really aspiring to get there, and keep helping. So there are things that worked for me, honestly, that got me to where I was. But that put a lot of, insight into me as I mean, how can I help other women just, keep succeeding along with me alongside? And so we can help each other eventually build that community out for women as well. So leadership in that spot, like I said, other than everything else that you spoke about, was also an opportunity to, I mean, look at where the group was or the world was at that point in time for me, and build more women leaders, or, I mean, look at the women leaders who were ahead of me and look at what they've done to get me to where I was, and kind of keep passing that torch on to other people that were following suit there.
Amazing. I love that mention of building out your community and also seeking out other leaders that you admire and really understand maybe what would they have done in this situation. Provide some sort of comfort and guidance as well in times where you may feel lonely. And thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your challenges in reaching leadership as well. I want to make sure we have roughly 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure we're dedicating enough time to this last topic, which is that many in the community have indicated that they want to learn more about returning to work after a hiatus. So if applicable, I'd love for you all to share some of the lessons from that experience if you have taken a hiatus before returning to work. And for anyone who may be feeling intimidated by the process or discouraged, what is that piece of advice that you would offer?
Man, I'm on the panel, but I'm learning so much. I took a bit of a hiatus when I was in law school, because you can't really work in law school. I mean, you can, but to really give it all you got, they suggest that you don't work. So I took a few temporary positions here and there, internships, so I could help my husband provide for our family, because at that time we had our oldest daughter. And although I was in law school, and law school is a legitimate excuse not to work, it was a hiatus nonetheless. I was often questioned on the gaps, and I realized that I could simply be transparent. Life is what it is, and you cannot rewrite history. You took a hiatus, and most people have real reasons for taking hiatus, typically. So a company's either going to remove you from the applicant pool because your hiatus is a strike, or they're going to accept you. So my advice there is to be transparent about your hiatus, own it, and recognize that the hiatus, depending on the length of time, may require you to take a step back position-wise and work your way back up. Employers recognize, and so I'll say this, employers recognize, or for me, it's been beneficial that they recognize that I was just authentic. So while some will be swayed because you may not be a good fit as a result of the hiatus, some will give you a chance. And it's ultimately really, it's always, I'm all about ownership and accountability. So ultimately it's up to you to overcome the difficulties that presented with being out of the workspace. So ultimately assess where you are and as a result of that hiatus, skill set wise, and pursue career opportunities accordingly.
Very actionable. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think Erica's advice is really great. You all, this is why the Mom Project exists. We know that the pregnancy pause, the mom penalty is real. This is why our founder actually created the Mom Project. And so we want you to know, because we have multiple clients who want to make space for people who have been on hiatus. I think the world has changed. Yes, I have taken at least 4 hiatuses, right? But I want to be real about that. My baby is 21, so the world has changed pretty significantly since I last took a hiatus. So what I'd like to do is take this from a different perspective. I think a lot of times, look, because we all know that the bias is real. Let's just put it out there. But I think it's how we approach it and how we deal with it. So a lot of us come back into the workforce feeling less than, and we feel like we have to explain or justify. Can I say this to you? All moms work. Let's just repeat that. I want everybody sitting in there, wherever you are, all moms work. And so I want us to change this language about working mothers. All moms work. You either have one job where you're taking care, and arguably the most important job in the world, because you are actually forming the next generation of humans, the next generation of people who are going to lead the world, the next generation of people who are going to be in the workforce. I arguably think that is the most important job in the world. Or you're a dual working mom, like me. I chose to be a dual working mom, which means I have that job and I chose a career outside of my home. Let me just ask you this. If you go into an interview, if you apply to a job with the mentality that you're coming into that because you, with the experience of having done the most important job in the world, how does that change your swag? How does that change the way you show up? Are you showing up going, oh my God, I've been out of the workplace for 10 years? Or are you showing up going, I have spent 10 years raising X amount of children. You know, I have budgeted, I have time management, project management, training skills, da 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 da. So, what I would say is that as women, we need to change the narrative of, and we need to change our perspective in how we approach these situations.
Oh, we need to record that and put it up everywhere. All moms work. That's just I know for a fact many of the mentees need to hear that because that discouragement that they're communicating, you know, in trying to become a dual working mother is very real. And there are a lot of biases that perpetuate that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Sangeeta, please go ahead.
And I'd love to just start this segment with thanking Mom Project for where I am today, because I found my project through you guys. And I think it's just being a part of this community is the most beautiful thing for me, because I remember, you know, I mean, talking to my husband about it, because beginning to interview after when I had my break with my twins, it was more of, you know, I was like, I can't even, you know, I mean, speak full sentences because I'm like, all I can do is probably sing Cocomelon songs. And I'm like, is that weird? And I'm like, see, it is what it is. So for me, it was more of spending that time. I mean, if you're trying to go back after I had is prepare, take some time for yourself, make sure that you're well prepared, because I respect somebody else setting that time to interview me. And honestly, like Rocky was mentioning, I think one of the things that I did speak about in my interviews was how much more I had learned about multitasking, about just being able to work under pressure with twins at that point in time, and everything that I went through with the whole pandemic, you know, I mean, kind of making our worlds different, was much more than what I learned throughout my career before that. So being able to, you know, I mean, bring out skills that you've learned, honestly, through that. And also, you know, I mean, a couple of things there, being real. So I'm super effective when I'm at work, but there are moments that I have where, you know, I mean, the kid is suddenly sick. There is nothing much you can do about it. And that's not necessarily gender specific. So just being real about it and saying, this is what I need. So this is what I need to take time off, but also seeking support. And by support, I mean, be it my family, be it, you know, I mean, my coworkers, or be my mentors in terms of how can I do this better to be able to be more effective at work with whatever time I have in hand, versus while I was probably single and I had all day to just keep doing what I was doing. So honestly, I've gotten a lot more effective after I got back from my break. And, you know, I mean, I've learned to manage time a lot more effectively. It's been a lot easier trying to deal with things because it's a lot more boxed versus, I have all my creative time to do what I want to do. I'm like, I have these 8 hours or I have these 5 hours today to do what I have to do. I seem to be doing it better, which I did not realize would be the case. So it's more of being real to yourself and getting all the help. And honestly, the community is really big. It's more about reaching out. It's the other thing I've realized. It's not that, it looks a lot different from the outside before you've gotten back to the workforce. But once I'm in here, it's the network that I build. And, I'm looking at the fellow panelists. So like Erica was mentioning, it doesn't feel like I'm on a panel. It's a lesson learned from everybody speaking every word. And like, I literally am taking notes mentally or otherwise. And like, it's just reaching out, getting these experiences to add to your own experiences and be able to build from there versus, having to scramble anything from scratch.
Wonderful. So we're about to close off here, but it's always fun to include a little bit of a rapid fire to wrap things up here. So we'll start with Erica. Maybe you could share one book or podcast or resource that has helped you in your career. And then any final words of encouragement that you want to share with the group listening.
Awesome. So a book that I stand on and I stand by is The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. It's a 40-day, 40-chapter spiritual journey. I received it from my bonus mom-in-law many, many years ago when I was an undergrad, and it just gave me so much perspective on life and working. I learned that work is essential because we're adults and we need to take care of ourselves and our families, and it's fulfilling. But the only thing, at least my takeaway from this book, the only thing that matters, and honestly, was basically my purpose, my personal life. My personal life needed to be fulfilled for me to be effective in the workspace. So Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And then just encouraging words. I'm a millennial, by the way, so I'm learning so much from the panelists. This has been awesome. But one thing I've realized is, and I know I'm never going to stop learning, I'm never going to stop growing, but I realized that my purpose is in my power. We're in a time, especially my generation, where people are very ego driven and, we compare ourselves. We're looking at social media, we're looking at everybody and I'm not here, I'm not there compared to somebody else. And, what I learned is we're all on our own individual journeys and we're in different places in our lives. And it's never going to be a fair and accurate assessment when we're comparing our journeys to somebody else's progress in life, because we just don't know the inner workings of their journey. And what I learned is it's best to plan and have tunnel vision on your own individual path, because that is how you truly activate your power. I'm human and I've compared myself, to people as well, but I noticed that it always caused me to operate out of ego. It always caused me to fail. It always hindered my progress. So when I stopped comparing myself as much, because I'm only human, when I stopped comparing myself, when that stopped being the focal point, comparison of other people, and started focusing on my opportunities to grow in my own life and in my own career, it dawned on me that my purpose was in my power, and my life and my career required me to focus on harnessing that power through knowledge, courage, and challenge. So thank you guys.
All right, guys, I know we have less than a minute, so I'm going to do this really quickly. Book, go get it today. Together We Rise. And if you're looking for a great podcast, I would tell you, come join me every Wednesday, 1 p.m., LinkedIn Live, Grown Woman Wednesdays, 30 minutes, where we amplify the voices of women, a lot who are moms just like you. And we talk about what you need to do to build a proud and purposeful and unapologetic career.
And I'll go next. So the book that has inspired me was honestly the Bhagavad Gita. So that's more of a spiritual journey of Lord Krishna. And honestly, for me, it's more of learning project management from there, because it's more of how do you negotiate? How do you deal with people when the environment is not the best for you? And how important it is to be nice, but or the other way around, how nice it is to be important, but it's also a lot more important to be nice and to, sustain and to help your community grow. So it's more of that. And I think the biggest thing for me that I took away from a leadership standpoint was the fact that, you need to have conviction. So, as a leader, nobody is going to keep appreciating you when you're doing a lot of things right. But then one thing goes wrong, if your name is out there for a lot of people to see. But then despite that, I think it's more of your learning that can give you the kind of conviction that you need to do your job. And to be successful at as well.
Wonderful. Perfect. I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling super energized and inspired by this conversation. Thank you all for those who tuned in and who listened to the recording. And thank you to our amazing panelists for really bringing amazing insights today. We appreciate you all. Bye, everybody. Have a great rest of your
Bye.
day.